Somewhere in your inbox right now, there's an email you've probably never opened. It's from your 401k provider, and it's titled something like, "Your quarterly statement is ready." You've gotten a version of this email a dozen times. You've clicked View Statement maybe twice, glanced at the total number at the top, felt a vague sense of either relief or dread, and closed the tab. That number at the top is the only part of that document almost anyone ever actually looks at. And that's a problem, because that number is the least useful piece of information on the entire page. Today I'm going to walk you through what's actually sitting inside that statement, the parts nobody explains to you, the parts your employer isn't required to make obvious, and the parts that can quietly cost you tens of thousands of dollars over your career if you never go looking for them. This isn't about picking hot stocks or timing the market. It's about reading 4 specific things correctly, things that take about 10 minutes to find and understand, and then never having to think about again. Let's start with the thing everyone skips straight past. The expense ratio. Every fund inside your 401k, whatever it's called, target date fund, index fund, growth fund, has a small percentage attached to it that gets quietly deducted every single year, automatically, whether your investments go up or down. This is the fund's expense ratio, and it is, without exaggeration, the single most important number in your entire statement, and it's usually printed in tiny gray text somewhere nobody looks. Here's why it matters so much more than people think. A fund with a 0.03% expense ratio is essentially free. A fund with a 0.75% expense ratio sounds almost identical on paper, 0.75%. It sounds like nothing. It is not nothing. On a balance that grows to $500,000 over a career, that difference in fees can eat over $100,000 out of your final number. Not because the expensive fund performed worse necessarily, but because you're paying that fee every single year on your entire growing balance, and that fee compounds against you the exact same way your returns compound for you. It's the one part of investing where cheaper is almost always better, and yet it's the one number most people never check. Here's how to actually find it. Log into your account and look for your specific funds, not just the summary page. Search the fund name plus the words expense ratio. If you're in a target date fund, something usually named with a year, like 2055 fund, it will still have an expense ratio, and target date funds tend to run higher than plain index funds because there's more management happening behind the scenes. That's not automatically bad. But you should know the number because if it's sitting above around 0.5%, there may be a cheaper index option in your same plan doing something very similar. Second thing, hiding in your statement. And this one genuinely surprises people. Your employer match, and specifically, whether you're actually getting all of it. Most people know their company offers some kind of match. Fewer people know the exact mechanics of how that match gets calculated, and that mechanic can quietly cost you money without you ever noticing. Here's the trap. A lot of employer matching formulas are based on your contribution per paycheck, not your contribution for the year. So if your company matches, say, 50% of the first 6% you contribute, and you're a high earner who front-loads your contributions early in the year to hit the annual limit faster, you can accidentally max out your own contribution by, say, September. Which sounds great, except many plans stop matching the moment your personal contributions stop for the year. If your employer calculates match per paycheck rather than as a true-up at year-end, you just walked away from months of free match money that a slower, steadier contribution schedule would have captured completely. This single mechanical detail, spreading contributions evenly across all 12 months instead of front-loading them, is one of the easiest 4-figure mistakes to accidentally make, and almost nobody explains it because it requires actually reading your plan's specific match documentation, not just knowing you have a match at all. Third thing, and this one has an expiration date attached to it that most people never notice until it's too late. Vesting. Your own contributions to your 401k are always 100% yours, immediately, no questions asked. But the money your employer contributes as a match often comes with strings attached, called a vesting schedule. A common structure is something like 20% per year over 5 years, meaning if you leave your job after 2 years, you might only actually get to keep 40% of everything your employer ever contributed on your behalf. The rest goes back to them. This number sits buried in your plan documents, not your quarterly statement, and it matters enormously if you're even loosely considering leaving a job in the next year or two. Sometimes staying an extra 3 or 4 months to cross a vesting cliff is worth several $1,000s, and the only way you'd know that is if you actually looked up your plan's specific vesting schedule instead of assuming all of your employer's contributions are already yours. Fourth thing, and this is the one that quietly runs in the background for almost everyone without a single decision ever being made, your default investment allocation. When you were first enrolled in your 401k, whether you did it yourself or got automatically enrolled by your company, you were placed into some default fund, and for the vast majority of people, that default is a target date fund matching roughly the year you'd turn 65. On the surface, this is actually a reasonable default. Target date funds automatically shift from aggressive to conservative as you age, which is a sensible approach for someone who wants to set it and never think about it again. But here's the part nobody tells you. That default was chosen for the average person in the plan, not specifically for you, and depending on your actual retirement timeline, risk tolerance, or whether you have other retirement accounts elsewhere, that default allocation might be more conservative or more aggressive than what actually makes sense for your specific situation. The point isn't that target date funds are bad. Plenty of people are perfectly well served by them. The point is that almost nobody ever actually confirms whether the fund they were automatically placed into still matches their actual plan, because confirming it requires going and looking, and the entire design of a default is that you never have to. Let's put some real numbers behind why these 4 things matter more than people assume. Take 2 people, same starting salary, same contribution rate, same employer match. One of them takes 20 minutes early on to check their expense ratio, spread contributions evenly across the year to fully capture the match, and confirm their default fund makes sense. The other never opens the statement beyond the summary page. Over a 35-year career, on a portfolio that might otherwise grow to around $600,000, the fee difference alone between a 0.8% fund and a 0.1% fund can be worth well over $100,000 at retirement. Add in a few years of a partially missed match from front-loading contributions, and you're looking at a gap that can run into 6 figures, built entirely from things that were sitting in a document neither person ever really read. I want to be clear about something, because this isn't about making anyone feel foolish for not knowing this already. Nobody teaches this. Your onboarding paperwork on your first week of a new job is not exactly designed to walk you through expense ratios and vesting cliffs. You're handed a stack of forms, told to pick a percentage, and that's usually the entire extent of the financial education most companies provide. If you've been contributing for years without ever checking any of this, that's not a personal failing. It's just what happens when a system assumes you'll figure it out on your own and never actually tells you what to look for. So here's exactly what to do, in order, and none of it takes more than about 10 minutes total. First, log in and find your specific fund's expense ratio, not the summary page, the actual fund documentation. If it's above roughly 0.5% and your plan offers a lower cost index option doing something similar, that's worth a look. Second, find your plan's actual match formula, specifically whether it's calculated per paycheck or trued up annually. And if you're someone who front-loads contributions to hit the yearly limit early, make sure you're not accidentally leaving match money on the table by spreading contributions evenly instead. Third, find your vesting schedule, and if you're within a year or two of a vesting cliff and considering leaving your job, factor that number into your timing. Fourth, confirm your default fund actually still fits your situation, rather than assuming the fund you were placed into automatically is definitely the right one. None of these 4 things require you to become an investing expert. They require reading 4 specific numbers that are already sitting in an account you already have, numbers that mostly don't change once you've checked them. This is the least glamorous 10 minutes you'll spend on your finances all year, and it's also one of the highest value 10 minutes available to you, full stop. So open that email you've been ignoring, not for the number at the top, for the 4 numbers hiding underneath it that actually decide how much of that top number you get to keep.